Brock,
Annie.
and we're with the Wild Tigers. And today we're going to share with you our vision, our mission, and our core values, and some of the strategic ways that we're going to meet those.
And we set out essentially before we started on this journey. We sat down, so this was 4 months ago now. We sat down in the woods, not here in North Carolina. We were in Wisconsin still. We went out, just the two of us, to sit down and literally took pen and paper and sat down to map out the vision, mission, values, and that sort of thing. So
yeah, night in the woods, day in the woods, away
Yep.
from kids. Made that a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit down and do
some-
strategic planning with children. So we were fortunate we were able to get away from the kids and really think about what it was going to mean for us to do this as a family. And not include them. Was very strategic.
And important to sit down and have that before we started, so that on the journey we had a framework for why we were doing what we're doing, and making sure we had a way to make decisions about, the journey in a meaningful and informed way.
Yeah.
So without further ado, where we landed, I'll start by sharing the vision that we came up with, which was a life aligned with our core values. So very simple and straightforward, but that is, where we're trying to get to, is a life aligned with our core values.
The mission is to create a more joyful life by learning, sharing, and playing.
And so the 4 values, so those two things go together, right? The mission is what helps us achieve,
the vision,
get us closer to the vision. And we have four core values that we strive to continue to be in alignment with on this journey.
And to add, like, if anyone's ever done strategic planning, like, it's easy to have like 10 values, right? So to really whittle it down to what we felt was 4 concise values that represented our lives fully, and who we were and where we want to go was really challenging. And so settling on these 4, I think, was tough, but I'm really happy with the 4 we chose.
I mean, it started with a brain dump of like a long list of all the things that we value and that are important to us, and then kind of tooling those around and seeing what fell into groups, things like that. So yeah, it took a process.
And we were able to do it without a whiteboard. Yeah. So that was fun.
And we did it with pen and paper, but
yeah.
Old school whiteboard.
Yeah.
I'm going to start by listing all 4, and then Rock and I will each talk a little bit about each. So the 4 values that we came up with are connection, curiosity, creativity, and restoration. I was hoping for 4 C's, but didn't work out. I like alliterations. So again, connection, curiosity, creativity, and restoration. And I'll speak to we gave a little bit, or defined those each for ourselves. So connection really means deepening our relationships with each other, nature, and others. And that's where we landed with connection. Because a big part of this journey is just better understanding of ourselves, spending more time in nature, and understanding the world around us, as well as the other humans that we get to enjoy this lovely place with.
The second one, curiosity, exploring cultures, community, and our environment with an open mind and open heart. So much of my life as a coach has been to understand and be curious why people come to me and help them develop. With children as a father, being curious is like, what makes them tick? How do I parent them? And I'd say, as a spouse, same thing, right? Being curious, like, how do I best make this relationship work? And then extrapolating all those things from our core family and our professions, and then really like what does it mean to really understand and not pass judgment? Because if we come from a place of curiosity, then we're not judging. And if we come from a place of judgment, that's a wall. And we want to have open minds and open hearts and see people for where they are as humans, all trying to figure it out. And so being curious allows us to do that.
And if you recall, a key piece of the mission was learning, you know, it was learning. And so the best place and the best way to learn is to come from a place of curiosity. If you're coming from a place of judgment, like Rock said, you're not really learning to the best that you can. And so for creativity, that's essentially, we define that as navigating social and physical spaces in unique and playful ways. If anyone watching knows us at all, we like to play. So creativity was a way for us to, the value of creativity was a way for us to capture the playfulness that is also part of our mission, right? Is to live a life that is more playful. Playful in the environment by literally just playing with each other, but also through creating things. So in unique and you know, whether it's through nature and learning and making silly videos or playing silly games, just creating, however that works for us.
Yeah, we haven't had too many opportunities to be creative in social spaces. More often people are just interested in what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we don't really have to be creative in explaining it. I would say it's just.
What do you mean?
Like, you know, so navigating social spaces, right? Like, how do we navigate social spaces in a creative way? Like, I think social norms, right? Like, what are some of the social norms? Like, we're more trying to figure out for us how to creatively exist in certain social norms. Like, we have an economy of consumption, consumerism, and, you know, money's a thing. And we're trying to live differently. So for us, how do we creatively exist in the current social norms? That's where some of that creativity exists for us, not so much in how do we, you know, interact with other humans in civilization. In case you were wondering,
that's
of those
the social
questions.
Navigating the social spaces. Yeah. Right. It is a little bit of it is both of those. It is that uniqueness and creativity in literally physically socially how we interact with other beings and structure our lives, but then also, physically playing with the environment and the things, the leaves, you know, that are around us.
Yeah. Learning how different people farm and what regenerative farming means to lots of different folks. We've met a few different people so far, and they all have their own unique creative ways of meeting that same end goal. So that's been fun to learn about that as a physical space in a social space as well.
Yeah, and we get there by being curious.
Yeah.
So on to the fourth one.
The fourth and final, if I had to have a favorite, it would probably be this one, and that's restoration. And we define that as embracing the cyclical nature of the natural world to heal our bodies and lighten our impact. You know, restoration, again, as the fitness and health professional in the family, you know, restoration is like always a big topic right now. We have people doing ice baths, saunas, you know, IV drips, all these things. And those are somewhat modern solutions to modern problems. I think about how long humans have been existing, I would say somewhat successfully, before the invention of certain things. And it was living a life a certain way, right? Like people who lived in colder climates and just were exposed to colder climates, they reap those benefits. And then we are like, oh, so cold exposure makes people healthier. Well, let me just create a protocol. And we are protocoling things that people just used to inherently experience by living their life cyclically with nature and the seasons. And so much of this journey for us is to remove ourselves from the protocol, I'll say science-based world. And how do we just live according to the natural law, the natural cycles of things in an effort to better restore. And our friend John Morey at Uncivilized Vitality, Dr. Morey is doing fantastic stuff with that. And so we're using that uncivilized vitality framework to help us better understand those rhythms and how we can create a framework to, I'll say, get a little bit of that protocol world, to ensure that we are restoring according to some of those natural things. So if you're familiar or unfamiliar with Uncivilized Vitality, go check them out. They're doing really great things, and we'll be working through some of that programming ourselves on this journey as well.
Yeah, and just to add to the restoration piece for anyone that's also watched our video of how we got to this point, but I found it really difficult to, both with just the seasons of fall, winter, spring, summer, and then even just the feminine seasons, found it difficult to really honor and lean into those I'll say I don't want to say normal, conventional, but like I had a 9-to-5 desk job, and so it was often felt difficult, not impossible, I know people that are doing it, but difficult to find ways to weave in those seasons and seasonality, both the feminine and just the natural, the seasons of the year, into how I worked. Again, I know people do it, and so for me, stripping that away is an opportunity then to lean into the restoration, into that cyclical, in order to better understand it and how I naturally change through the seasons to better be in tune with myself, also the connection piece, and then to just live more fully. So lastly, we want to share with you, so we just went over mission, vision, and values, and so we also mapped out kind of 4 strategic initiatives that essentially we've been working on kind of over the last few months since we hit the road, that support all of those, which we've kind of already hinted at a little bit. One of those is the YouTube content creation and promotion, because this is sharing, right? We want to share this with you because we want to help others be able to do this, not just this necessarily, but do something that helps them live a life aligned with their values, right? It doesn't have to be what we're doing, but we want to share, and this is one of the ways for us to do that, outside of the people that we're meeting along the way, to help you realize there are choices everywhere you look to whether make a change or do something differently that feels better for you. So that's one of the strategic initiatives that we've struggled with sometimes. It's hard to do with kids on the road, but we're trying to continue to put out content for you so that we have an opportunity to share what we're learning with folks.
Yeah.
Go to the next one.
Men's work and women's work. One of the things that we both are trying to explore are those divine masculine, divine feminine roles that we all play and we all inherently have as dualistic beings. And I got really into men's work in Madison and had some great successes with that as a participant and as a facilitator. And men in this country right now, and I would say somewhat the Western world in general, are having a really hard time. We know suicide rates are up. We know substance abuse is rising. We know less and less men are graduating college and in intimate relationships. So there is a crisis of men's health right now. And my background in fitness and some other personal experiences with therapy and trauma, et cetera, really helping use my tools and gifts to help men out as we're on this journey and finding pockets for in-person opportunities, as well as creating online opportunities for men to help shift those statistics of where we're seeing rapid decline. And then Annie, as far as women's work, I'll let her speak to that.
Well, I'll also add that there's a decent amount of work that Rock is doing on the women's work front already, that is also relevant here. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, so when I owned a gym, I created a program called Move With Your Cycle, and it was using natural movement exercises and methodology in conjunction with the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. I have since extrapolated that and am building a program, course, whatever you want to call it, that is movement through the feminine season. So starting with menstruating women and how they can move during those cycles, and then movement during pregnancy, movement during the postpartum portion of life, and then movement in menopause, well, perimenopause and menopause. And this course will cover movement in all those regards. And so regardless of where a woman is in her journey, in her cycle of life, that um, she can learn about movement in a way that best supports her for that phase of life.
So Rock's already doing a lot of women's work, and he's working on building out that program and putting it out to the world. So that's huge. I always joke that he knows more about women's health than I do. But trying to tap into what he's been doing in some ways, how it's been useful for me, especially on the movement front, to then work with women. Charles still trying to figure it out, this particular piece, but whether it's virtually or in person, and working with women to just build connection, along with our values, connection, and move together and be outside together, and just let go a little bit of kind of conventional ways of being, right? Like, be outside, let's move and play, versus like a organized workout per se, and then sit by a fire and share, and then possibly do some dancing outside, because I feel like dancing and music and movement are also really important from an emotional well-being standpoint to get things unstuck in our bodies. I'm by no means an expert at any of those things, but I am good at organizing and gathering people together. So that's what I'm trying to lean into. Have not done it yet, but we're working on figuring out how to do that. So, yeah, and then the men's work, women's work was one strategic initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you do the next one.
Yeah, movement. As we travel, in addition to some of the virtual offerings I have for online coaching and online programming, setting up opportunities to teach people natural movement in a play and strength-based focus, and ideally outside. So my brand on Instagram is Strength Play Nature. And so in these workshops that I offer in person, wherever we end up woofing, or wherever it is, or wherever you might want to see us, because we don't have a strict timeline and agenda.
Yeah, so reach out if you're interested. But
continental US and maybe Canada.
Oh yeah.
So we'll say that.
Yeah.
We're limited there. But, to bring all the knowledge and expertise and passion I have for movement, my goal is to help everybody age adventurously. And that means beyond wiping your own ass and tying your own shoes if you make it to 100, the world is to be explored and enjoyed. And we can only do that. We can only age adventurously if we can move through and with the world and the environment that we exist in. And so movement is a gateway for me. It unlocks the path, and I want to be able to share that in workshop formats with people wherever we go, or online if access is a thing as well, because everyone deserves to move and explore and enjoy and age adventurously.
Yeah. And lastly, something that we've already talked about before is just woofing and skill gathering. So a large part of how we've oriented our journey so far has been staying with different, whether it's homesteads or farms, through the woofing community. That way we're meeting people, and we're learning how they've done things, learning new skills, and yeah, all things that will help us, well, now and then down the road too, if and when we decide to do similar work ourselves on our own little plot of land.
Mm-hmm. And another into that skill gathering, again, John Morey has created so much cool stuff with that Uncivilized Vitality,
right,
that he's got a lot of skill development stuff there. And then so collecting skills in that world as well. And then other skills that I didn't expect to, like we had a mouse in our car in Maine.
Yep.
Started to create a nest. And so, never replaced a cabin air filter before, but went to, AutoZone or Advanced Auto, I forget which one, got a cabin air filter and installed that. Super easy.
We did catch the mouse.
We did catch the mouse.
Just so you know.
Killed it right away. And our kids were asking, because we were reading Ralph Mouse. They're like, is that Ralph Mouse? And I'm like, no, that wasn't Ralph Mouse. Ralph Mouse knows how to avoid mouse traps. Yeah. So they were happy that we did not kill Ralph Mouse. But I am happy that we did not have a mouse build an entire nest in our car.
Nobody wants mice in their car, but when you're living out of your essentially car and a camper, it's like a large part of your home.
Yeah.
It went to a next level of
we can't have you here.
Uncomfortableness, discomfort of having a mice in the car. So it was good to catch him quickly.
Yeah.
So I mean that's essentially all of it. We kind of went through that. I won't say quickly, but again, right, the vision overall is just a life aligned with our core values. And so all of these things, the mission, which essentially is to create a more joyful life by learning, sharing, and playing, and the core values we shared of connection, curiosity, creativity, and restoration all support all of those things for us, along with those strategic initiatives that we're still working on putting more out there. It's been a learning process the last few months on the road of just being all together all the time, and how to navigate our energies around that.
Yeah.
So looking forward to sharing more soon.
Real quick on the restoration piece and kind of getting at that is, we're with our family all the time, the four of us. And so finding the space and time has been one of the more challenging things for us to, what does it look like daily? And, one of the things Annie and I are trying to okay, what does the daily rhythms look like? And when we're a little more settled, like at a place for longer than a few days, it's easier to get into that, okay, hey, we each need 30 minutes a day alone, right?
Or more.
Or more. But what is that what's the minimum effective dose needed kind of thing? And that has been hard when I remember when we left Maine to come south to Virginia to my parents' house, we were sleeping at a different place for roughly 2 weeks, every other night.
Yeah, that's hard.
And that's hard. It's hard to get into those rhythms. But it's tough. And so, yes, the whole part of this journey is part of it is restoration. That's one of our core values. And we just want to let you know it is hard. We're not we're camping right now only because we're at my parents' house and my parents are watching the children.
Yeah.
That's why we're out here
without them
them today and able to shoot these videos. Because having that support is nice, but it's hard to find that support on the road sometimes.
I think the other challenge too is, for me anyway, as everyone worries, but I don't know. As a parent that worries a lot about the kids, sometimes when you're in new places with new people, trusting other adults to set boundaries and communicate with your kids and let them be in their space, and trusting that it'll be fine, and backing away is something I'm learning too. And so we've been in lots of places with wonderful hosts who are happy to let the kids follow along and help, and for me trusting hey, this is their space to be with that elder or that person, and stepping away, and then getting those microdoses of alone time or doing our own thing. And so trust is trusting the kids and trusting other adults to be adults is something that I'm working on too, that then allows for those other things too, right? And being and leaning into the curiosity there, let me be curious, let me see how this pans out for the kids and for this person, and how can they develop their own relationship without me present. And that's something where those core values are helpful, but it's hard. It's hard when the context with which we're living is always changing. So a lot more to come on that. Looking forward to sharing more of the skill gathering and things that we develop along the way. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you all.